Amanda, thanks for being here
Thanks for having me.
virtually.
Right? Yeah.
This is cool because this is the first virtual episode I've got a chance to do. So we're kind of figuring out the, quirks of doing it that way. But thanks for being willing. And right now, so we're recording this in April, and where I'm at just totally dumped snow. So thankfully you didn't have to drive or anything like that.
I was
So
really hoping I'd be able to make the drive down, but
it's all good. Well, I'm excited for people to learn about what you're doing with Landmark Collective and Alaska Social Media Manager. You're involved with women in small business here in Alaska. And so I feel like all the information and knowledge that you're about to share is going to be super relevant to people right down the road from us. And so that makes me happy because that's what I'm trying to do with this, is to get those tools and resources out to basically our neighbors. So thanks for being here. So I want to learn more about you. So it's nice to have a Alaskan born and raised person on the podcast. So tell me about where you grew up.
so I'm born and raised really just right here in Little Palmer, Alaska. My grandfather came to Alaska in 1940. The family disputes it. It's either 48 or 49. But it's in our blood, and building Alaska, helping Alaska. My grandfather was a surveyor. So a lot of the roads in South Central Alaska, Grandpa had something to do with.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. But yeah, no, I love Palmer and convinced my husband to stay. He loves it too.
Cool. So you grew up in Palmer, never moved or lived anywhere else in the state?
Not in the state.
Okay.
I've had brief stints in lower 48, various things, whether it was my husband's military, going to school, things like that.
Okay. So your husband's military?
Not anymore. He was.
Okay. Gotcha. Cool. I'm in the Alaska Army National
Okay.
Guard. So
Nice.
I was 26 years old and just decided like I could probably do that. But I didn't go active duty because I already had a family at that point, and I was like, they didn't sign up for this. That was kind of a big thing because it's no joke to have
Yeah.
to uproot your life and move, every 3 or 4 years. So cool. That gives me a whole new insight into to your world. You know what that life is like. It's not
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
Not easy. So do you guys have any kids?
We don't. We just have had many dogs over the years
Yeah.
now. We currently
Awesome.
have a 4-month-old puppy, so she might make a brief appearance. We'll see.
Awesome. Yeah. I wouldn't mind if that happens. That's fine. I'm sure our people watching wouldn't mind either. So like I was saying earlier, every like venture, every business, every idea, big idea, like the reality of that starts somewhere. So with Landmark Collective, can you tell me like how you got involved with that and what even made it appealing to you, just kind of living your life in Palmer?
Sure. So Landmark Collective started back in 2020, right before everything shut down. It was the founder, Sydney, was amazing, amazing young woman, who just felt this need to give local businesswomen a place to come together and to learn from each other and to lean on each other, because Alaska, while it seems like a big small town, we're so remote from each other, and business can be lonely no matter who you are, no matter where you are. It can be a very lonely thing. And so she started the first Friday of every month. We'd all get together. There'd be a panel of experts talking on various topics, and then we'd have time to just hang out. I want to say it was late 2020. Had gone back to meeting in person after a brief stint online. Was my first one. One of my cousins, who's also a business owner, had heard about it from a friend of hers, and she was living in California at the time, so she couldn't go with me. My very first landmark, I sat outside the door for 20 minutes, trying to build up the nerve to go in, because I am the ultimate introvert. But I just knew it was something I needed to do. I had the social media business already at that point, and I knew that I was thinking, these are potentially my ideal clients. These are women I want to work with, helping them with their social media for their Alaskan businesses, and that was my whole goal. But it became so much more than that for me. I kept going back, knowing I needed to work up the nerve to actually talk to people. And it was, every month was a challenge for me for quite a while. But I got to know Sydney. I got to know several of the other regulars, and I look back now and I made friendships there and built this amazing networking group of women. And after a few years, Sydney was getting busy with life. She's starting having babies and whatnot. And she just realized that it was too much. And so she wanted to go ahead and close it down. And I realized that I couldn't let it go. And I had several other business women actually approach me, Amanda, you need to buy it. Why I was the one that they all came to, I don't know. I haven't figured that one out. I'm sure it's one of those God things. But I ended up really hounding Sydney, quite frankly. She didn't want to see it go away either, but it was still, her baby. It was something special. She had started this from scratch. And she finally agreed. And so February 24 was my first running Landmark. Our first get together, we had almost 60 women come together from all over the valley and Anchorage. And it just has blossomed from there again. It's a beautiful thing to see that we've seen business partnerships come out of it. Lots of friendships have come out of it. I mean, you'll hear after like our last one the other day, I happened to overhear several ladies, well, I'm going to go hike the butte today. You should come with me. I'm like, oh no, I can't do it today, but let's do it tomorrow. And so it's really neat to see that, yes, it's a business networking group, but it's so much more.
Yeah. Was there a time when, like in that transition between you and Sydney, did you guys stop doing First Fridays for a little bit there? So what was that gap? So like because of COVID, I'm assuming?
No, actually,
Okay.
it ended up being about I want to say there was 7 or 8 months where there was no First Fridays. There was no Landmark. And that was really just a matter of Sydney not being 100% sure what she wanted to do, and then me actually deciding to move forward with it and say, hey, I'd like to take the torch and keep it going,
Gotcha.
So it took some time, getting things in between and getting everything switched over and reset up and things like that. It's
Gotcha.
the logistics of events, no matter how large or small, are always a lot.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, from 2000. So yeah, it wasn't COVID is around the time it started, but it was in that 2023 to when you took over in 2024 was that kind of the gap in like the First Friday events. Did you feel that? Did other people feel that like void once people weren't meeting anymore?
Oh, 100%. It's I'm not exactly sure, but word got out that I was thinking about it, that I was in the running for it. And I got messages from people that I'd only talked to once or twice, and they'd send me a DM going, hey, I heard you're going to do this. Please do it. I miss it so much. We need it back so desperately. And it's a lot of us did. And then once they started back up, I have had, and I still do, I'm so glad you took this back over. Thank you so much for keeping it going. It just, like I said, the business world, being a solo business owner is lonely, but I sometimes feel like it can be even more so for women, even more lonely because we are social creatures. And we already tend to have this, we're taking care of our home, we're taking care of our families, and then we're taking care of our business on top of that. And we might not get out too much after otherwise or have any opportunities to have a reason to, it's a business expense. Let's go hang out.
Yeah. And so a couple weeks ago, I talked to Shelby Oden, who's a business owner here on the peninsula. And a huge part of our conversation was community-centered business practices. And it was shortly after that, or around that time, that you reached out, and it turns out someone else is like prioritizing community over competition. I think that's kind of like the tagline that I read on your website. And that's a special quality to have, and almost a necessary quality to have in these smaller communities around the state, because like there's not a whole lot of us. And if we want to succeed in what we're doing, the best way to do that is probably uniting with other people and not treating them like as outsiders or competition all the time.
Yeah.
And I know that like in the nature of business is that way. And me and Shelby talked about it a little bit. It's like the tendency can be like, well, if someone's shopping there, then they're not going to be shopping here. If they're using that, they're not going to be using this. But it seems like your approach is like based off of all of our interests, all of our skills. how can we unite and support each other, and then let that spread out to our communities. And I think that's what's so cool about what you're doing up there. So I'm glad you took the torch. So I'm sure a lot of people are also happy that you did that. So was it like a huge jump for you? I mean, you already had Alaska social media manager. So from my perspective, like you're already like business oriented. You're doing something of your own. Was that like completely out of left field to like jump into something big like that for you? I mean, you mentioned your personality, but just like the logistics of like, how do you buy a business and how do you run with it? And how do you take on this, like, not clientele, but like something that was already established and now take ownership of it and run with it? What was that experience like for you?
Well, the logistics side of putting events together, it's kind of funny. I feel like I've been doing that my whole life because I grew up very involved with our local church. And anybody who's involved with the background of a church, you know that there's always events going on, whether it's weddings, funerals, birthdays, celebrations, whatever. And I've always been usually the one in the kitchen getting things ready and getting set up. And so that side of things, I'm like, I've been doing this for 30 years. That's not a problem. I can handle that part. Buying a business, it was definitely the first time I had ever bought a business. But thankfully at that point, I leaned on my community. I did. The cousin who told me about it, she has bought and sold several businesses. And then one of my social media clients at the time was she calls herself a fractional CFO. And so she was very involved with helping people buying and selling businesses. And so I reached out to her and I'm like, hey, can I just please pick your brain? I don't even know how much money to offer for something like this. I had no clue.
Yeah.
And so she was happy to help, happy to see something like this continue, and was really able to give me some solid ideas of where to go from that. And so, yeah, it was one of the just leaning on my community and people around me who knew what the heck they were talking about.
That's awesome. And at what point did you kind of reflect on, hey, I can do this? Like in the beginning, you mentioned like the nerves were just running wild, but like, you know, you've bought the business, you're the person, here we go. Like, how long did that transition take for you to be like, I got this? Or are you still, like,
the nerves are still there, not as bad.
Yeah, there's always that. I mean, I don't know if we ever get to the point where like, we got this. And I think that's just out of our nature to grow and improve and like, you know, get outside of our comfort zone. But I'm sure that the confidence started to build up after some time, right?
Oh yeah, and I really do. I actually have, because I just started Landmark podcast. I've got one coming out here in a couple weeks that is just me talking, and I talked about how I've gone from scared to death. I mean, I've had full-blown panic attacks and anxiety attacks and all that good fun stuff, to I can run a room. And it's one of those things that I've realized has kind of come and gone throughout my life. And I've gone from, you know, my first job, I got thrown into working at the front desk of a hotel. And I very, very quickly learned how to make small talk with customers and a bit of salesmanship in that. I just got forced. I had no options. You know, you had to get over it. And from there, I went to various office jobs and whatnot and kind of lost that skill to a certain extent. But there was bits of it that stuck with me. And then at one point, my husband and I decided to open a food truck here in the Valley. And we did that for a couple years. Blew up way bigger than we were expecting. Kept us very busy. But I was the window. I was the face of it, you know. And so I got forced again talking to people every single day. And by the end of the day, my face hurt from smiling so much, you know. Yeah. And then COVID hit. And at the time, we had actually briefly moved down to Oregon. We were working with a manufacturer down there. They were going to start selling we were making barbecue sauces and spice rubs. And we had potentially an in with Fred Meyer's. I mean, we were going to go all in. And COVID shut all of that down. And so I went from, you know, working on that virtually, leaving my house maybe twice a week to go to the grocery store, to all of a sudden, once every other week, I left my house. And I didn't talk to anybody. The manufacturer had shut down. I mean, there was no interaction whatsoever. And unfortunately, because of that, living in that for a good 7-8 months at that point, we came back to Alaska, and I caught myself within about 5-10 minutes of being in a grocery store ready to have a panic attack. I just couldn't handle, I wasn't even talking to anybody, but just being around people scared me to death.
Yeah.
And Landmark 100% brought me out of that. I really do. From just attending the various meetings, getting up the nerve to share my elevator pitch for my social media business, and slowly talking to people, just getting more and more comfortable and remembering those skills of, quite frankly, small talk, being an adult. But
Yeah.
at the same time, though, because of that, and partly, because of my church, I've had to, I've run children's church, I've spoken at church, I've, had to speak on mission trips and things like that. I've gotten thrown to the front off and on throughout my life. But Landmark gave me the place to practice those skills and to bring that back. And so by the time I bought it and was running those, it was I don't know what it is, but there's a difference for me between sitting in a room and being expected to make small talk versus, and it sounds almost conceited, but I'm the one in charge and I'm going to tell everybody what to do. And
Yeah.
I can run the room. And so it really, I don't know what it is, but that switch has flipped. And so, yeah, there's
Yeah.
some nerves still, but I'm comfortable with it. And I've also definitely something that has come with age, 100%, is I've come to the realization that done is better than perfect. It doesn't have to be a perfectly rehearsed speech. I can get things wrong. I can stutter. I can and ah my way through, and nobody's going to care. We're all in it together. We're all in it for the same purposes. It's Landmark's a very, yes, we have an outline of how our First Friday events are run, but it's pretty informal. We're there to help each other, to, support each other. And I'm not a huge fan of the term, but quite frankly, it is a safe space for these women to come to. We usually start each one with everybody gives their elevator pitch because it is a safe place to do that without judgment. And I've had women a few times now have burst into tears trying to give their elevator pitches. And there's one lady, I adore her. I actually just talked about her story, recorded it on a podcast episode. I remember her very first Landmark. It was the first one I owned. It was the first one she had ever been to. And she was brand new in her business. She was a doula. And she had a really nasty encounter with someone at a health and wellness fair. And the woman was just cruel, had made these really rude remarks about, her weight and things like that. And so it had really been weighing on her just a few days before Landmark. And so she comes in, and throughout the event, we usually end it with a Q&A from the panelists and things like that. And she asked the question, she's like, what do you do in this situation? And she ended up just bawling, trying to tell this because it hurt her so much. And I think we were all in tears. I mean, it's just, you start one of us crying, we're all going to join in. We're very supportive that way. But, she had women come up to her at the time she asked the question and afterwards and told her, no, you're beautiful. You're the person who's exactly needs to be doing this job. You're strong. You can, you're the person we can lean on. And, when we're in the middle of childbirth, we know that you're going to be that strong person we can lean on. And she said that just completely changed it for her. She's like, yeah, I am. I am strong. I can, and from there, seeing her come to the various Landmarks, she's been one of our most faithful people this last year. Her confidence, her demeanor has completely changed. She's gone from, let's hope this business does okay and that women do need me, to, I think she's booked out through October right now. I mean, she's booked out for several months ahead and staying busy, loving her job, and just so confident in herself and what she has to offer now. And she has said that it's because of Landmark has given her that place to start and to grow.
Yeah. How cool that, the same thing that you experienced with taking ownership of a role and finding this you that you knew was in there, but now it's well defined, and you've, one, had permission, but also gave yourself permission to totally take ownership of it and make it the way that you would want to make it. and then watch all those qualities come out, in you and the networking and stuff like that. And then to see that in somebody else,
Yeah.
that's got to be pretty special. And I'm sure there's a lot of
It's
stories.
amazing. Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of stories that are like that with women finding the same thing. Can you tell me, with those first Fridays, you mentioned there's like a specific format and how those go. So what could someone expect when they go to a First Friday event?
Sure. So usually they're always in the mornings right now because I asked everybody when they wanted it, and that was the overwhelming vote. And so we go to different locations, usually different business hosts. So we get to also see all these cool different
Oh,
businesses
cool.
and things like that we might not even know existed otherwise. And then we have a different topic that we talk about each month. So typically they'll come in and we'll have about 10-15 minutes of everybody coming in, getting settled. And there's always food and coffee, and I'm always begging people to please eat all the food because I don't want to take it home with me. There's always leftovers. But and kind of, just relaxing and getting, saying hi to people you might not have seen in a month, or more. And then I usually have at least 3 panelists is my goal, and then it's kind of an interview style. I'll ask them questions and they'll answer, give their various answers, whether it's based on something they're an expert in or something that they have also dealt with in their own businesses. And so we get a really neat group. And then that's usually 45 minutes or an hour, depends on how things are going. We open it up for Q&A. And I mean, I've had that section go for another hour and a half. And I'm like, okay, ladies, we're getting kicked out. We have to go. We
Yeah.
can't keep doing this. But some of the discussions are just like, wait, I've got more questions. We could totally get this answered, And then after that, it's just more, let's hang out. We've got hour left that we can just, spend time with each other, make those connections. And over the years, I've gone to various other networking groups just to kind of see how their setups are. And so I'll bring in some of those every now and then, like a lot of times when we do start with the elevator pitch before we go into the panels, I'll ask, what's your ask for this month? What's something you need in your business, whether it's you've got a launch coming up, you're doing a new product, you're just hoping for some more referrals, you've got some openings, something like that. Here's a group of people who, you can trust. Ask them, let's find out what we need and get, help each other out. That's always a really fun one that we do. But yeah, and then we relax, we have a good time knowing that we don't necessarily have kids pulling on you that need something, or, the chores can wait a little bit longer and we can just relax and enjoy.
Good. There's a variety of women going to these events. So this isn't like for the hardened business owner that's looking to network. This is from like, maybe I want to start a business, to I just started a business, to I've had a business forever, but enjoy the community, enjoy the network. So is there like, does it the scale tip one way or the other? Or is it pretty even like on those first Fridays?
I think it's actually pretty even. At one point I might have said it was more newer businesses than not, but honestly it's evened out pretty well. I mean, we have anyone from, we've got photographers, estheticians, doulas, retail owners. I mean, we've got for just about every business out there we've got women construction owners. We've got everybody comes. And it's all ages. And like you said, we've got, every now and then we'll have some women. I've been thinking about starting this business and I just don't know where to get started. So I figured I'd, come ask some questions here, to women who have been in business for 20 plus years,
It's
So,
awesome.
yeah, it's an amazing group. It really, and that's 100% the reason I had to keep it going was
Yeah.
the women who are
That's
already there.
That's great. So with a variety of businesses like that, I'm sure there's challenges to each one depending on where you're at. Construction versus like, having a nail salon.
Yeah.
You're gonna have different challenges. What are some of the common things, like when you go into that and you have people from all walks of life, all experience levels? What are the things that you try to highlight, or the people that you try to bring in that have expertise that is basically maybe not applicable to everyone, but most people going to those first Fridays?
I mean, it's our usual topics are, it seems like always comes back to marketing is a big one. Everybody has to market their business. And whether that's social media marketing, website SEO, content creation. I mean, we cover all of those. Taxes are always a fun one, although nobody wants to go to those. They still ask for it because they know they need it. We don't
Yeah.
really want to talk about it. And so it is, it's, yes, there's a lot of different businesses, but at the same time, most businesses run on the same principles. Everybody has to sell, everybody has to market, everybody has the same, you should always have an SOP for your business and things like that. So there's a lot of that that's actually easier than you would think to bring in on a broad scale. And typically the panelists are quite the variation as well. I mean, this last panel we had, let's see, it was on content creation. We had a social media manager, oh heck, I don't even know what Lena's title is. She's, is essentially like a communication coach.
Oh,
And she works with both individuals and with businesses. And then we had a business branding photographer was also on the panel, and just talking about their various types of content creation. And so it's nice to see that you get both the expert side, but then also, hey, I've been there, done that side of things. And so that really keeps that broadness there that people can still learn from no matter what their business is.
is there a variety of education levels with business owners that show up there?
Yeah, 100%. We've got people fresh out of high school to, master's degree or doctorates even. I personally didn't go to college. I went to a unaccredited Bible school. And so we have a huge mix. But that's usually not even a topic. It's not brought up. Just because entrepreneurs are their own breed. We aren't necessarily, well, you have to go to school for this to work. We're usually the bootstrapping. We're going to figure it out. We're going to make it work. And so the education side, I'm not knocking it at all. That's great if you have that ability. But at the same time, it doesn't matter if you don't. We can still learn from each other and we can figure it out.
So my conversation with Shelby a couple weeks ago, we touched on exactly that she did go to, she has her bachelor's in business from UAF. And she was like, I mean, does she regret it? No. But like, was it necessary? Probably also no. She's like, there's a lot of things that she was saying that she wished she had learned in business school that she's basically, figuring it out on her own. And I think that is, you nailed it. Like the small business owner is like the get her done. Like if it's not going to get done unless I do it. And, and I think that's the kind of attitude that you need to have if you're going to go into that. So I'm happy to hear you say that, because I think that probably, maybe not a huge deterrent, but for some people, they're like, they think it is a prerequisite to be successful, and it doesn't sound like it is.
Yeah, it's funny. I've met people on both sides of that, people with their masters in business who tell you that you can't successfully run a business unless you have that, or you're not going to ever make that much money. And then like, well, that's funny. There's these certain business coaches and that I follow and that I've learned from that are multimillionaires and barely made it out of high school. So I'm not totally sold on that idea.
Yeah. Can you talk about any other stories of people that you've seen at Landmark that, maybe came in with an idea or a dream, and just how that, came to fruition?
Let's see here. Oh, I was just thinking of one. I got to remember. You're going to have to edit this out.
It's all good.
I do know that I don't always, unfortunately, I wish it was more so, but I'm always privy to a lot of those ideas and those conversations and I feel bad too. It's kind of along the same lines. I'll have women come up at the grocery store like, oh my gosh, Amanda, it's so good to see you. And I'm like, hi, I don't know who you are. I'm so sorry. Like, I'm meeting potentially 20 new people once a month, and I'm horrible with names already. And so it's always such a big group. I mean, this last one, I loved it. I had to leave to go to a different appointment, and there was like this circle going off in the corner with these women sharing these ideas and making these plans. I'm like, I would so love to go sit in the middle and hear what they've got going on, because I know they're scheming something good over there. But no, I've been very fortunate though that like I had one of our regulars come up to me just a couple months ago, and she's like, Amanda, I've had this idea for years. I want to do this, essentially like not a retreat, but a conference, something big, something, for all this stuff. It's like, but I feel like I can't do it by myself. Can you come help me? And so we're hopefully in talks of scheming something fun coming up as a collaboration with Landmark and other businesses. And so I do get to hear some of these ideas and these plans, and I've seen businesses completely pivot, and these women who they've been happy with their businesses and successful, but realizing, this isn't my dream necessarily. And, what do you think about this idea? Now let's take it. And I've seen them pivot that same business completely to do, not maybe a complete 180, but a very different strand, instead of taking off what they were planning. And it's nice that we are with this group of entrepreneurs. We're very much, yeah, do it. Go for it. We'll support you in that. We'll talk it up. It's you can share an idea in this group, and you're not going to go, well, that's dumb. You're not going to hear those, you're not going to be shot down. You're going to, well, have you thought about this twist on it? And let's play. And I mean, I had somebody a while back, we were in a Q&A, and she asked a specific question, very much relating to her niche business. And she's like, I work with these clients for a very short period of time for this very significant part of their life, but I know you're supposed to keep clients coming back. She's like, but if they're not, what do I do? People just started yelling out. She's like emails. How do I keep them on the email list? She's like, dude, you should write about this and this and this. She's like, wait, I can't write fast enough. And so it turns into this big brainstorming session, and it's so much fun. Those are my favorites. Yeah. Hands down my favorites.
Yeah, that's awesome. You're getting like real-time feedback from a variety of people that potentially have the solution to like your biggest questions or problems that you're having. That's really cool. So what do you think the biggest challenge, or maybe some reoccurring themes that you've heard with being a woman in business today, in Alaska specifically, or just in general?
It might be. I think it's probably more in general for women. Is there's like two things. The one of them is that we tend to take so much on ourselves that because women we're servers. We're people who are there. We're there to take care of our families. We're there to take care of our friends. We are very much it's in our makeup to give and to care for others and to be that caregiver. And so remembering that we have to take a time and a moment, and maybe it is, once a month at Landmark, just relaxing with friends, of refreshing ourselves, of getting that rest. I mean, I mentioned, our food truck. My husband and I, we were putting in 100+ hour weeks on our food truck, and we got to the point of burnout. I mean, that was part of the time going down to Oregon. It was shutting down the truck itself. And then I felt like I didn't get off my couch for 10 months because I was so mentally and just physically exhausted. And at the point I didn't even realize it was burnout. And I looked back on it, I'm like, oh, that's what that was. That's why my brain didn't work for 10 months. It's so easy to throw yourself into that. And just on top of the business is your house, your family, your kids, your pets, whatever it is. You have to remember to take a moment to breathe and to pull back and realize that business school teaches you one way to run a business, and very typically, without sounding like a complete feminist or something, it's typically a very masculine way to run a business. It is. You mentioned the fairly recent podcast we did with a hormone specialist, and it's becoming more and more of a thing, not to completely gross out all the guys out there, but men's hormonal cycles are on a 24-hour period. Women are on 28 days. And we have our ups and our downs in that. We have good weeks, we have bad weeks. We have, weeks where we got all this energy and these new ideas and we can't wait to create something new. And then other times we're just ready to take a nap for the week and just hibernate. And so bringing that into our businesses, that's actually something I've started studying just for myself 8 months ago or so, that whole idea of something like that. And it's completely revolutionized how I look at my businesses. instead of burning myself and burning myself out and wearing myself out, realizing that for this to be sustainable, I have to be able to take some rest.
Yeah.
And then the other one, and it's something that women around the world, I think, have struggled with in this world of media, especially social media right now, is what we're supposed to look, what we're supposed to sound like, and how we're supposed to act. We see all these examples given to us by media constantly, and sometimes people we know too. It gets pushed on us. But I'm usually not a word of the year type person. I like the idea, but I'm pretty sure there's some ADHD in there that just won't remember. But almost every single First Friday this year so far, it has come back down to one thing, and that's authenticity. And it's being who we are and embracing who we are and knowing that that's really who people want to buy from is us. And that's what makes not only us different and special, but it makes our businesses different and special.
Yeah.
And in this world of AI and filters and everything else, is people are ready to get back to real life. They're ready to get back to the authentic other people, and that's who they really want to support.
Yeah. And you mentioned something earlier about like talking and not worrying about the imperfections, that not every word was going to be spoken perfectly. I think it was in the context of you taking over Landmark, but
Right.
the more that I do stuff like this, that's in the public eye and people are going to watch, there is that temptation that like, I have to cut every I have to
Right.
get rid of every like, and but because there's this whole world that we see with social media and Instagram and AI that says, hey, I could make you perfect. That's becoming more of a turnoff for me. I'm like, I want authenticity. I want to talk to someone and know that they're a human being and have had human being experiences. And you're right. I don't want to, I want to buy from or get the service that, sure, it looks good on the outside, but I also want it to accomplish whatever goal I'm hoping it accomplishes, whether that's the quality of the product or the service. And that is huge. And so I'm glad that's a reoccurring thing, a reoccurring theme, because I feel like the temptation is to make everything even more perfect somehow, if that's even
Right.
a possibility. But I feel like that's where AI is pushing us towards, is like, put zero thought or effort, get a perfect product. But for the human being, it's like, I still want connection and like to be able to relate with somebody. And that's huge. So that's,
Yes.
I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised that that's a reoccurring thing, because I'm sure that pressure is there for people in business and for women specifically.
And I know guys go through the same thing too. I am well aware of that. I feel like I don't know, maybe we get it a bit more, or it's just because I am a woman. I feel like we get it more.
So here's I'm gonna drink my coffee for this part, but this is the part where the woman in business, small business owner, can bring their husband into the conversation, because they probably are not going to tune into this episode specifically when they're like, oh, I'm not a woman in business, so I'm not going to listen. But you touched on, the specific challenges like with hormones and, how cycles work. And if you are married to a woman or have had a girlfriend and you're a male, you've experienced that firsthand, and it's a real thing. That there's and I don't know how to really chalk this up, but as a man, I'm 37 years old. I watched my father not really take an active part in the home. He went to work. He did provide. He was a hard worker, and he did provide, and the bills were paid. And, I'm the oldest of four. My mom did not work. She was at home. She got us to school. She did all the things. That was what I saw. I don't want to speak for every man, but I feel like most men, that is kind of the expectation, is that you will work and you will provide for your family. So I'm still working on this. I will also say that. But a very good conversation my wife and I have had. She works full time. She's a teacher, so her day starts very early and it ends kind of late depending on the things that she has going or other additional duties she has as a teacher. That expectation somehow is still there for me as a man, that even though my wife is working full time, there's all these other tasks she is also going to accomplish. It's like a default setting in my head that like, oh, I'm not thinking about laundry. I'm not thinking about mopping the floor. I'm not thinking about, what the kids are doing next week and how we're going to organize our schedule so that everything works and they get to point A, from school and to point B after school. There's a lot of things I'm not considering, but that doesn't mean I have any less responsibility to those things because it's still my wife and it's still my family.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know if it's it's because of what I saw, but men, if you're listening, it's not an excuse, and it takes effort, and it does require a certain amount of change to do those things. We talked
I think
about
a lot of it too is it depends on the couple.
Go ahead.
You have to figure out what works for you. I mean,
Yeah.
I actually have three businesses. And then my husband works full time for the state. And so we are both very, very busy throughout the workday. We're both very fortunate at the moment to work from home, which is nice. So we can still are around each other. But then, our evenings are, you have to take care of the house, you have to haul firewood, you have to, do all the things. And I'm very fortunate that we've kind of fallen into the roles, and some people kind of laugh at it. My husband is a classically trained chef, does not cook for a living, but I absolutely adore the fact that I don't have to worry about dinner every night. It's so nice that that's his role. And
Yeah.
and he does help out around the house with, especially fixing things and things like that too. But at the same time, I'm very, very happy to be out there, hauling firewood and splitting it. It's part of it growing up in Alaska too, I'm sure. But maybe not their traditional roles, but that's okay. And so I think
Yeah.
each of us have to figure out what works best for us and our family. And as long as, both spouses are willing to have that conversation, then figure out what works for you.
I think that's it, is having the conversation and then defining the roles and realizing that those roles probably change as life goes on. And I think that's like me and my wife recently kind of had that, like a reevaluation of our roles, because our kids are a lot older now than they were. My daughter's 11, my son is 7. And they're way busier now than they were before. And so it's kind of reassessing that, like, what are the expectations? Like, what do you expect me to do? And what do I expect you to do? And how does this work for everyone? So I think you're exactly right.
I think the best marriage advice I ever heard was, as long as you're taking care of each other, you're going to be okay. It keeps the selfishness out of it.
Yeah, it's true. Do you think that when you start a small business, do you automatically, is it an automatic recruitment for your spouse and your family? Is that something to is that like a conversation you should have?
I think it's definitely something you need to discuss with your spouse. That's for sure. I was very fortunate with Mike when we, coming back from Oregon, we moved back up. We drove up the Alcan, and that's essentially when I came to the realization that I needed to start my social media business. And he knew he was going back to work for the state after working with our food truck and all that at that point. But he was very happy to support me in my dream, knowing that, in a lot of small businesses, sometimes you don't make a whole lot of money your first year and things like that. And we were very fortunate to be in the position that was okay. And so it is 100% a discussion you need to have with your spouse. You need to make sure you're on the same page there and everything and supporting each other. And now there are, and I always laugh, you see those videos out there now on social and whatnot of, it's my wife decided to start a crafting business and now I have a full-time job, and so you do kind of get roped into those. I mean, I'll admit our food truck might have started because I wanted a side hustle of selling barbecue sauces. And then it turned into my husband cooking full-time on the food truck. So, it's things happen.
Yeah.
But as long as you're in agreement, you can make it work.
Yeah, I agree. What is your advice? It kind of just to tag to the end of that. like what would be your advice to the spouses of, these men to these women that have these businesses? Like if you were just like one or two things that you're like, do this and they will love you forever. Like do this and it will mean a lot to them. What would your advice be to the men to support their women
I
in
would
business?
say, for the men supporting women with businesses is take them seriously. Be willing to listen and listen openly, and know that this is not just a cute little hobby. It's not a cute little side thing, that it's really something that for most of us, it's been a dream for maybe some time. Maybe it's new, but it's something that's in their heart and means a great deal to them. And so if just having that support of someone willing to listen, I always like that. I'm a big Parks and Rec fan. We've watched it way too many times. But it's just one of those, But there's that time when the one character is pregnant and she just wants to vent, and her significant other just wants to fix all her problems. And finally the coworkers go up to her and they're like, she doesn't want you to fix her problems. You just need to listen and respond, that sucks. And that's it. And that can be so huge because, and maybe we do need some advice sometimes. And we're usually pretty good. Hey, what do you think about this situation? We will ask for it if we need it. But if we're just venting, just give me that sucks. And be there to give me a hug when I need it. That's going to be a huge part there. For women with the business, something for supporting their spouse still is remember that, if you've had that open conversation, don't expect them to be there at your beck and call maybe to get stuff done. Know that they still have their job, their business, whatever they're doing as well, and that you're in it together. And that, don't get so busy that they get maybe not forgotten, that's not the right word, but maybe pushed off to the side a little bit. It's family will always come first, always. That's your most important thing. That's more so than any business, more so than however much money you're making, is that relationship should take first priority.
Yeah. You want the family to still be there regardless of what happens with the business.
Yeah.
And I think if you keep that in mind, like going hard in the paint to make the business successful is a great, quality to have, but the family's still going to be there at the end. And I think it's important for the men to realize that, just as much as the women, that we need to prioritize each other. I think it's funny. It's been like the theme of this if every episode. And if people have been listening, it's like, it always comes back to like the family unit, like make the family unit great again. Let's love, each other, deeply. Let's, get involved in our communities. And, it's not a theme I'm going to complain about. I love it. No. I love that. And I love that for Alaska too. And men, like talking about men's default settings again, it is to fix it. And we have to be aware of it. We're like, you know what she needs right now is some sweet advice from me on how to fix this problem. And that is not it.
Usually not.
It's usually not it. Yeah. But do we keep, playing that card? Most times. Yeah. So, my
husband's gotten pretty good about it. He does literally, sometimes he'll hear, I'll be complaining about something, a problem or whatnot, and he'll just look at me, and it's almost with a bit of a grin, but that sucks. I'm like, thank you, it does.
Yeah.
That's all I needed.
Yeah. It's even better that he has the Parks and Rec reference that you also know to say that, because then he knows what's up. So I want to kind of tap into some of your expertise with the social media aspect. Social media is, like you said, there's a lot of challenges, a lot of pressure there to present something that people want to be engaged with. The algorithm, the almighty algorithm, like I feel like everyone's trying to figure out. So with what you started with Alaska Social Media Manager, like what kind of, how were you like, oh yeah, I'm going to totally be able to, hack this thing called social media. And then how are you helping others with that? What are some common things that you see maybe people doing well or struggling with? And just more about kind of that world for you.
Sure. I inadvertently got pushed into social media on a semi-professional basis about 2010. Didn't even have my own Facebook at the time. Didn't want it. Hated the idea of it. But it kind of happened, and I realized over the years that, and especially with the food truck, I learned a lot running the social media for the food truck, and it really came down to remembering that social media first and foremost is social, and that you have to make everything very simple in your marketing and very straightforward. If you go too cutesy and whatnot, people aren't going to know what you want or what they, what you want them to do, where you are. I mean, like for us, the food truck was, my goal was no matter where we're set up, I'm going to be posting a picture so people can see the visual. I'll tell them where and when. I mean, it was I'm like, yeah, this seems pretty basic. Just telling people where you are so they can come buy your food. It shouldn't be hard, In the off season, I learned a lot because in the off season, it's what do you keep posting?
Yeah, it's
just
true.
figure that out. And so I had a lot of learning those couple of years on the food truck when it came to social media. And that drive up the Alcan from Oregon when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be when I grew up. I was listening to the podcast by Christy Wright. At the time, it was called Business Boutique. For any women who want to start a business, I highly recommend it. It's phenomenal. But one of the things she touched on was when you're trying to decide, you want to go into business, you might not know exactly what you want to do. There's usually 3 different ways you can figure that out. Is one, you get shoved into it and it just happens. It's something that God lays on your heart and it's just obvious. It's something, it's a drive, it's a passion. It's there in your heart. And then the other one is when you can look back over everything you've done in your life, whether it was on a professional level, on just hobbies and interests, things like that. Very often you can pinpoint things that lead to something. And for me, it was looking back and pinpointing those things down to marketing and specific marketing on social media. My interest in marketing started when I was only 17, listening to people talk about, these big name businesses that were dying and then they changed their marketing and they exploded. Audi almost died until they changed their marketing and it completely revolutionized. They're still here today. And so the psychology behind it, I thought was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And so I really spent that whole time, I just dug into reading all the books and listening to all the podcasts, and I took a few classes, and my introvert side loved the idea of working from home behind my computer and not having to talk to the public anymore. And so I got a couple of years where I got to do that.
Yeah.
But and then the heart of that, the passion side, was Alaska. Like I said, my grandfather literally helped build the road systems here in Alaska. He subdivided homesteads all over to create these subdivisions in these neighborhoods. And so, you can go back even further. My family goes back to the Oregon Trail, it's that pioneer, that building, creating, that supporting new, it's in my blood. And so being able to help these Alaskan businesses grow and realize that we don't have to struggle. If we want to grow to become businesses that serve the world, the whole US, the world, whatever, we can do that. We might just need some help marketing. And marketing a business, typically small business owners spend at least 20 hours a week on marketing their business. That's a huge part, especially if you're hoping to be making 40 hours or less.
Yeah.
And so for me to be able to pull that off of people's plate so that they can actually get back to the parts of the business they love, that was my goal, was to help grow these businesses and grow it in a way that they could sustain. And so I really am a big believer in, when it comes to social media, it's 2 things right now. It's authenticity and consistency. People don't want to see the perfect pictures. They don't want to see the AI because you can usually spot it from a mile away anyways. And then because that ever-loving algorithm only shows our stuff from, typically about 2 to 4% of our followers even see it, we have to be consistent. And that's part of what I'm able to offer in my business as well, is consistency. The big thing that I usually try and remind people and my clients and things like that is that social media is it's not going to solve all your problems in your business. It's not going to make your business necessarily blow up overnight. It does some. It's a rarity on those. but it's just one cog in the wheel. Marketing's just one part of it, and so you have to stick with it. You have to be consistent, and you have to be real. Otherwise, if you're not real, you're just going to burn yourself out. If you're faking it on there all the time, you're just going to completely burn out, and you won't be able to keep it up. Yeah, it's something I enjoy, that's for sure, though.
Good. I think you're so right that if you are spending so much on what you're portraying to the public, you're not working on your craft or your service. Like, it seems like you should really hone in on that, whatever that is in your heart to do, to be really good at. If it's a bakery, to be really good at baking. Like, at the end of the day, like, without a shadow of a doubt that, like, you are putting as much effort and time into perfecting that craft. Awesome. The social media part, like you said, is just one small piece of that. And so, and I've seen it, I've been on the side, and this is probably a food truck. I think it was a food truck that I was like, their social media was like, they did all the things. They got all the grabby captions and illustrations and website, and like, I'm seeing them everywhere, but the food truck wasn't really that good.
It does come back to that. If you don't have a good product, it's still not going to sell well. You have to have a good product.
You have to have a good product or service, at the baseline, and then build from there. So I think that's a good point. So people that want to, oh yeah, no problem.
Sorry, the puppy is begging to go out.
Oh, it's okay. So if there's people out there that are like, I know I need to do better with social media, do they come to you? Like, are you in the position of like a consultant, or are you actually like doing the stuff?
I do a bit of both.
Like taking charge of their social media. Okay.
Yep. I do both. I have a certain amount of clients that I essentially do a done for you package. I've got some clients who are like, here are the pictures and videos, just take care of it for me. I don't care what you do. I've got other clients who we sit down and we work through it month by month of what exactly they want on there. And so my done for you packages are all very custom depending on the client. And I'm there to whatever I can do to make their life easier. But I also realized that, like, when we had the food truck, I couldn't have afforded me. And I'm well aware of that. And a lot of small businesses are in that boat. That's a big expense. So I also have I've got an online course. It's gone through some iterations over the years, and it probably is going to be doing another one here before too long. But it comes back down to, I will, for a much, 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 much lower price, teach these small business owners, and quite frankly, Alaskan or not, how to do what I do for their business, but what I do for others. Because I've got a system and a framework set up now that I can come up with a content calendar for the next month for one of my clients. It takes me on average 10 to 15 minutes. And then from there, I can, create the graphics, the videos, whatever, things like that. And so instead of that 20 hours a week, you're looking at maybe 2 for all of your marketing, your social media marketing.
Which is huge.
It's massive. And so anything I can do to give that time back, and instead of that crap, I need to post on social media today, I got to think of something real quick so I can get it on there. I'm like, no, dude, schedule that out. Have it planned ahead and, have it set up. And yeah, it takes some time at the beginning to get that set up, but it's so worth it. It's instead of that stress, that side of your marketing is working for you while you get to do the other part that you love.
Cool. So be real, authenticity when it comes to your social media and in general, and life in general. We talked about that before. People want what's real. And then consistency, or like your biggest, 2 pieces of advice. Anything else? Like minor things? Or like don't do this.
No, I'd say the biggest one is videos are king right now. They still are. And which is funny because I'm very much preaching to the choir with that. I do as I say, not as I do for my own personal ones. I'm awful about putting videos up. I do them for my clients, but, and put your face out there, and granted, that's not every business, but most of them. And that's a big part of the authenticity part. And remember that done is always better than perfect. if you're putting something, like say you're recording a video for a story, if you're going through 15 times re-recording something, honey, don't even look at it. Just put it up there. That became my biggest thing. Was I'd record something, just like a quick little blurb. I knew it was going on my stories. I wouldn't even watch it because I knew I'd delete it. I'm like, just put it on your stories, because if anything else, stories only last for 24 hours. They will be gone. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's a huge part of it. And that actually I learned by paying attention to some of these big names, these not necessarily influencers, but whether it's business coaches, thought leaders, things like that. If you look at whether it's their podcasts, their social medias, things like that, they're very rarely perfect. One of my favorite financial podcasts that I listen to, he has his own little commercial, as it were, in the middle of his podcast about his book that he recently came out with. And in the background, you can hear his dog barking, like through the whole thing. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, if he can do that, knowing it's going to be played on every single podcast episode, yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah, yep, totally. That's exactly right. But again, because there's so many people out there doing the opposite, saying in order to succeed, it has to be like this. Right. It's hard to fight those voices because that's what you're seeing so much of. So it is refreshing when you have the people that are successful, are doing great, and they're also just kind of real and, letting people see the mistakes. I can't remember. I might totally butcher this. I don't know if it was a musician, if it was James Taylor or Bob Dylan. One of them was quoted saying that he intentionally left mistakes in some of his recordings. Mm-hmm. Have you heard that?
I have. I don't remember who it was either.
I can't remember who it was. I'll have to look it up after this. But intentionally left mistakes in the recordings because it brought a different kind of, for the listener, especially if you know what you're doing, you're like, oh, that's interesting. He kind of missed a chord there. But then if you're also in the creating mindset, you're like, oh, I heard a mistake and I could probably, you know what I mean? I picked that out. I could do that. I do that too. It makes it more relatable for the person that's trying to create something similar. And I think that's pretty important.
It is.
You mentioned, expenses when it comes to, with what you're doing with consulting. I know for Landmark, there is a small, is it a membership fee? Is that what you would call it, to be a part of the Landmark community?
Yes and no. So we've got a couple different options for people because we do typically meet. It's usually Palmer, Wasilla. Sometimes we'll go to Eagle River. August, we're actually going to be out in Sutton. And so it's kind of a small circle, if people getting to us. We do have people come out from Anchorage. I had a lady drive all the way down from Denali last year. And she's like, oh, no, I drove in this morning. I'm like, that's a 4-hour drive to be here at 9:30 in the morning, but okay.
Yeah.
So we do get those. So First Friday events, it's $45 to come. And like I said, you get breakfast, you get, we've always got a bunch of beverages. It's always really good. And then we also offer, for those who can't make it, for those who are too far away, we have an online version as well, a community that you can join. It's only $25 a month, and we record all of our panels. You still get to see all that. You can go back and watch the previous ones. We've also put master classes on there for a couple different topics. We've got book clubs on there. It's a lot of fun. And so it kind of gives you a couple different options. And, maybe the 45, that can be a lot for some business owners. And so only 25, that is going to be a little bit easier. And then if you are an online member and happen to be in the Valley, you also get a discount. You get $30 off an in-person ticket. So you end up saving money if you're part of that. Cool.
But the podcasts are out there. What's the name of the podcast that you can find? Is it only on... I feel like I just listened to it on your website. Is it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts? Those other
Spotify.
Hosts?
It's on both of them. Yep. Or you can go to our website. It's just the Landmark Collective podcast. We've got, as of this recording, 10 episodes out, but we come out every Tuesday at 6 a.m. with a new episode. Some of them, you're going to hear just me talking to the wall. But most of them are getting to sit and chat with these amazing businesswomen who have something that they've learned, something they're an expert in that they want to share, that they know that will really help the community.
Awesome. So yeah, it's April and now, but by the time this episode comes out, will probably be May, June. Who do you have, who are some of your panelists, or what are some things you see upcoming with Landmark moving forward?
Sure. So on the podcast, like today just came out, I've got a hormone specialist specifically talking about syncing your business to your hormones, essentially. I'm really excited for some ones we've got coming up. We've got one coming up, Kate Gibbs. She used to be a business coach here in the Valley. She's now a marketing person, talking about pivoting your business, because she's done quite a big pivot in this last year. The doula that I mentioned earlier, who I've gotten to watch her grow in her confidence, we actually did a whole podcast episode on that, talking about building her confidence. And it was the funnest conversation to have. It was so good. That's coming up here real soon. Another one and we have such a huge, eclectic mix of people. One person, she was actually just a panelist for us, and then she's going to be back in October, but she's, the communications expert. She wrote a book called The Fight Languages, kind of like the love languages. But it's how
interesting.
people fight. It was the coolest conversation. Like, I swear, Elena, I could talk to you all day long. It was the neatest.
Awesome.
And that my interest at digging into that psychology type things again, it was just fascinating and completely changed. I'm like, every single fight I have with someone, this is going to 100% change it. It was really cool. I've got a conversation coming up with a CFO. We're going to be chatting here real soon. I haven't recorded that one yet, but I get to talk to everybody. It's
awesome.
It's really neat. And then our first
Introvert's
Friday event, right? First Friday event's coming up. Let's see, where our June one is on the topic of sales without being, like a car salesman or slimy or anything like that. We've got some amazing experts coming in from there, including we've got some people from the SBDC are very involved with Landmark, which is awesome. And then we skip July because, quite frankly, the first Friday in July is usually 4th of July weekend, and no Alaskan is in town. We are all out, we're all fishing, we're all doing something. Yeah. And so we skip July.
You're all in my neighborhood fishing and camping is what you're doing.
I'll actually be down in your neck of the woods come July. So that's where I'll be. But August, we're going to be talking about email marketing, getting into those, kind of digging back in. No matter what your business is, you need an email list. Is really what it comes down to. So yeah, you
mentioned the Small Business Development Center. That's huge. That's a huge resource. Are there any other resources, books, podcasts, like when you have like your elevator pitch for like resources that you should go check out if you're a woman in business? Like, who do you usually recommend to people besides Landmark?
Unfortunately, when it comes to resources like that, business women are a little behind the times. Most of the books I recommend, they're written by men, but that doesn't mean they're any less, good. My go-tos lately, actually, one big podcast I've been listening to lately is Jenna Kutcher, Goal Digger, Goal. I adore her. And then the Amy Porterfield Show. Those two are phenomenal resources when it comes to really anything business, but especially marketing your business. Yeah.
Okay.
And honestly, something that's probably because I turned 40 last year, so it's very near and dear to my heart, is retirement. Bill Abraham, his book, Building Your Money Machine. Every single entrepreneur out in the world needs to read that book. It's phenomenal. And he has a podcast as well, and I adore it. Absolutely adore it.
Awesome. Good. Thank you for sharing those, because I'm sure people are like wanting to know. I think, what else? I think I got everything that I want. This has been awesome. I've loved talking to you about all this stuff. I think it's going to bring a lot of value to people everywhere that are listening, but also just knowing that like in the Valley, there's this group of women that are meeting once a month. And like you said, the community aspect of it is enormous. Besides like the networking and the things that you're getting out of it, like just knowing that like things outside of business, just if you had a bad day or something completely unrelated to your business. Hey, puppy. What's your dog's name?
Lucy.
Lucy? Oh, she's cute. Just to have that is huge, because it's more than, competition. Like you said, it's about community. That's what I wanted to bring up was The merch on your website is awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Oh my gosh, the motivated AF, the kind AF.
Yeah.
That was a genius. I don't know if it's considered marketing, but like it's perfect. It's perfect for Alaska women. It's perfect for women in business. Yeah, if you're a woman in business and you don't have that swag, you definitely have to go check it out because it is pretty. You guys did a really good job with that.
Thank you. We had fun with it. Yeah.
So, how do people follow what Landmark is up to? If you want to just drop your website, the social media stuff you guys are active on, and the same thing with Alaska Social Media Manager. Like, if people are interested in finding you there, where can they go?
Yeah. So Landmark is pretty much technically everywhere. We're on, of course, Facebook, Instagram, Landmark Collective. Website is thelandmarkcollective.com. You can see all of our upcoming events, tickets. You can get links to the podcast, our merch, like you said. All that's on there. I'm on TikTok, not quite as active on there, but we are on there. And LinkedIn as well. I forgot about that. Landmark Collective is on LinkedIn now. And then, so yeah, that's pretty much everything on that one. And then Alaskan Social Media Manager is pretty much everywhere as AK Social Media Manager. You can find it, share lots of tips and tricks about, making that world of social media a little bit easier for business owners.
Awesome. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for spending your morning/lunchtime with me. And like I said, I think a lot of people are going to get value out of this. It's great to know that, again, that community is the center of what you guys are doing, what you women are doing. Forgive me, what you women are doing in the Valley
I say
and
you
for
guys
people
and
all
everybody
over the
gets
state.
called here.
Yeah.
We're good.
So thank you so much. And I'm excited to see what's next for Landmark and just the businesses that sprout out of that. And I wish them all well, and make sure to, hit me up if you guys start doing something new or exciting and you want to come on and tell everyone else about it. I'd be happy to host that. And then, like you said, you have a podcast. So if you're listening to this, you're already listening to a podcast, head over to Landmark Collective Podcast if you're a woman in business, if you're a woman in business, or if you're just interested, and jump onto those episodes. A lot of relevant information for women that are in that space. And I think it'd bring a lot of value to you also. So thanks again, Amanda. You have a great day.
Thank you, Manning, too.